We stay with the story and speak to the South African National Defence Union National Secretary Advocate Pikkie Greeff, who's joining us this evening now. Good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. So this morning, a smaller plane arriving carrying the 3 critically injured soldiers. Now this afternoon, another one has landed, a much more bigger one, carrying more of them. What do you know as a union?
Well, we know that especially the 3 critically wounded that was mentioned earlier by your guest arrived here. And then the rest of the people that arrived, as you say now, they are also to a certain extent either sick or wounded or have some family issues that they have to tend to, like death in the family and so on. As far as the number is concerned, it's close to 200.
And when you look at the rest of the other ones who are still going to then arrive, are they included in this close to 200, or are they going to then form part of another number?
No, the ones that are returning now is the ones that are basically injured, wounded, or have some kind of need to be returning, some personal need. The rest of the people are still subject to those very sensitive negotiations that's been mentioned by your previous guest. So their prospects of coming back is entirely in the hands of that process.
And when it comes to this sensitive process of negotiations, when you read some of the reports, for example, about what is currently taking place, they characterize it as, tense, a situation that is tense. There's frustration, there's anger, there's, a lack of water, a lack of food. Some are saying that they're facing possible starvation. What do you know about all of this as a union in light of all of this that's being said in the public domain?
Well, we know what our members have told us, members who are on the ground there, and we know that their food supply and electricity and water and so on is subject to M23's control because they're surrounded by them. And so they're basically blocked inside their bases. And yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in. It's very frustrating, obviously very demoralizing. But I think the public should know that, our soldiers do have what it takes to sit it out. We'll see how those negotiations go. I'm certainly optimistic that in the end there will be a solution.
And when you look at, some of those, as you say, there are those who are injured, there are those who are coming home for various reasons, including death in the family and other various issues as well. Are you able to confirm that, some of the reports suggesting that there would be those who are pregnant are true?
Yeah, we couldn't specifically confirm it, but I think we need to mention as a union that it's not a general thing that happens during deployments, but it's also not unusual. So it can happen, and obviously then if someone falls pregnant, they can't stay in an operational area. Okay,
so I'm sure you've seen, the conversations about this in the public domain to say, as you say, it's not general, it's not unusual. Others are saying, would they have been deployed, pregnant already, or would it have happened there? I'm sure you've seen what has been taking place in the public discourse, and one, of course, appreciating just how sensitive all of that is. And I wonder, what are you able to tell us then in that regard as far as those questions are concerned?
No, I think we must remember, that with gender equality and, the deployments are always going to reflect the general population of South Africa, both in terms of gender and so on. So, it's bound that if you are in one base for 12 months in one place and you can't move anywhere else, people are going to develop relationships. It's nothing unusual. That doesn't mean there's a lack of discipline. Some of those people even get married later on. We're obviously not sure about these 2 specific individuals. The chances that they deployed while they were pregnant or sent there while they were pregnant is very slim because they go through medical tests, which includes pregnancy tests before they get sent off to deployment. So I think people have reason to believe that they fell pregnant there. But again, I'll stress it's not unusual. When the Americans were in Afghanistan, I think I read it was about 5% of their soldiers fell pregnant as well.
And much has been said about the communication around what is taking place there. I wonder, what is your posture as a union?
We're very disappointed in the department's communication in this whole matter. We understand that it's sensitive and there's a fine line to be walked, but there's so much uncertainty outside there, especially with the families, and with everybody else asking questions, that we feel that the department could just have been a lot more expressive, reassuring and assuring the public that it is taking the necessary steps. This thing that the department basically remains silent while the questions mount by the day, that it's not helpful for the trust that the public have in the Defence Force, or for the family members, or even for the soldiers. Even the soldiers themselves aren't regularly updated on what the situation is or what their authorities are doing on their behalf.
And given the fact that, you've just said that it's sensitive, and listening to our colleague here as well, Sophie Mokoena, who say that this is a very sensitive operation, you also don't want to release much information and put, the negotiations in jeopardy. So how then would you suggest the department should have handled this issue of communication, and how far do they go to ensure that they don't breach their own regulations, but at the same time keeping the public informed?
I think from our point of view, it's quite simply that if you go into a situation or a negotiation situation and you know that it's sensitive, and by the way, it's only sensitive because your troops are trapped there. Right. So, and that is the sensitivity that's at play. Then, from a union's point of view, we would suggest when you negotiate, you sit down with the other party and you explain to them that I need to communicate with my people in South Africa. If we agree on X, Y, and Z, then this is what I'm going to tell them. I need to keep them updated on almost a daily basis. But that also goes for the families, speak to the families more often, assure and reassure them. That's what we would suggest. Agree with your negotiation partners that you are going to make some kind of a media release or statement, and see to it that you don't step on their toes while this sensitive negotiations is on the go.
You say that it's only sensitive because your troops are trapped. Could the reports that the troops are trapped, or some of the suggestions that they're trapped, be then true, listening to what you just said?
Well, let's just look at the facts and what the members told us on the ground. They're confined to their bases. They are under a ceasefire. They are not allowed to move around unless it is authorized or organized by the UN and authorized by M23. In other words, everybody's cooperating with the movements. So they can't leave that base freely and do whatever they want. They're basically stuck there. The airport is out of order there in Goma, so they can't fly out and they can't be fetched in that way. So basically, that's why it is sensitive. They are, for all intents and purposes, basically de facto hostages.
So when it comes then to that, and possibly that information then now being in the public domain, one wonders, what does it do to the families then?
I can just imagine it's terrible to the families, worrying about where your husband or your son is, whether they're okay, how they're coping with all of this. It's really, really difficult. Even for the union, it's very difficult. There's a lot of our office bearers are in that operation and are in those bases. People personally. It's really troubling to one.
Sure. Thank you so much for that update. Appreciate it. Certainly, we need to get the, SANDF just to talk to us about quite a number of what you've raised tonight. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. That was the South African National Defence Union National Secretary, Advocate Pikkie Greeff, speaking about the sensitivity of the developments in the Eastern DRC, and certainly we'll try to see if the SANDF will speak on this one. As you've heard repeatedly, it is a sensitive matter, quite sensitive when it comes to the negotiations, and as well as, the continuous talks that are currently underway. And we're hearing now that there will be another plane that's expected to land possibly tomorrow, even before the end of the week, as we're now seeing the movements around that particular part. But we'll bring you more on this developing story.